Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis. I'm Michael Morris, not Stan Willis, but Stan Willis is with us. What are the chances of that?
I'm not Michael Morris. I'm Stan Willis.
First of all, you just ruined the intro. We get into this thing, we're rolling, and then you want to jump on. Just one introduction is fine.
Wait, Nate. Was it all right? Was it good? Yeah, see, Nate thinks it was all right.
Edit this part out. What he's doing right now, edit this
Nate,
back out.
Don't edit this out.
Stan, the pressure's on because we had...
The pressure's on.
We had our last show.
The pressure's always on. I got to carry this thing. It's hard.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. But we had such an emotionally charged show last week, and I thought what we're going to do today is we're going to have some fun with phones, possible pornography, and possible charges, right?
Phones with phones.
So...
I like it that way. Funds with phones.
Remember this when you need a title, and I forget this, so we can say, you know what title we should have used? This. So, Stan, I haven't talked to you about this issue, but Apple just decided with our government, our overseers, that they are good. That's not funny. Don't laugh about the government. They are here to take care of you and spy on you.
Never, ever, ever do such a...
Remember, kids, trust your government. Part of the Patriot Act has been spying on people. Would we say that's an oversimplification?
That's a huge oversimplification, but the Patriot Act did go a long way into doing away with all of the Bill of Rights. You know, that nasty little thing gets in the way a lot.
It was old. We don't need it anymore. We only have to protect like 2 rights. Do you know all the Bill of Rights?
Not off the top.
I just know we the people.
I used to know them. We the people. Okay.
Well, that's part of the Constitution.
No, that's actually... never mind.
It doesn't matter what it is because it's going to be burned.
We the people. It's in the preamble. Can you recite the preamble?
Of course I can. The preamble. So, I should have been the lawyer in this issue. I'm like this.
See, if you would have had Schoolhouse Rock when you were a kid, you could recite the preamble.
I remember that funny little Bill guy that looked like he was high. And I knew that guy wasn't working for a living. He was out there stumping for his next election. He's trying to get money. And that poor schoolgirl that was on the steps with him, where's her group? Right. They just left her. They left her by herself.
It happens. Some bills get left behind.
I'm talking about the children.
No.
Remember when Michelle Bloblama wanted to bring our girls back home? Now, I don't know what girls they were talking about, but they kept having these sad little pictures. Where are all those girls, Stan? Do you know where they are? Because Apple might.
I'm just a bill.
Yeah. So Apple's new thing, as we're going to move along, Apple's new thing is they are going to allow or be able to look into your device with the newest upgrade. So by the time this show comes out in a couple of weeks, there'll be some people already in jail for this, but you should know why. So Apple is going to allow, and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. So we're both parents. I'm a better parent, but if your daughter is in a relationship with someone that's under the age of 18 and they decide to send, let's just call them racy little photos to each other, Apple will now send a message to you as the derelict father and say, and it'll be digitized, this is what was sent. There's nudity here. So you're getting an alert. But someone on the other end, whether it's Apple, the NSA, is going to determine that this is pedophilia or potential, because someone that's 18, you can't have that. Now you're asking a technology company to decide intent of what this is and what these relationships are. But that's just the headline grabber. The other part is they're going to be able to see everything that's on your phone.
Yep.
How do you feel about that? And why are you such an Apple fan?
Well, I actually don't own an Apple.
I know, but they don't. I was doing that so you could, like, you're saying it like to me, say it to them.
I don't own an Apple.
Well,
although I do have an iPad.
Okay, so you're part of the problem. I am an iPhone user from day one.
Okay.
And I send a lot of those photos. Nate can tell you. He keeps saying, stop sending these to me. And if the lighting's right, big boy, you're getting them. If you remember, I want to say about 8 years ago, there was a terrorist.
That's just nasty, man.
I don't agree with terrorism either. Nate, that's not funny. So There was a person accused of doing a terrorist act, and he had an iPhone, and allegedly he'd been texting with someone that he was going to set off a bomb, whatever.
Which is just incredibly stupid.
To text it?
Well, yeah, I mean, why do people feel the need to broadcast?
Do you know how much slower it'd be to mail that? Yeah. Stan, I'm going to bomb a train. I could just text you.
You know, you think about back in high school and college, the last thing you wanted was everybody knowing what the heck you're doing, right?
Yeah, but you know how you get out of it? This is why, again, I'd make a good lawyer. If you put LOL on the end, no one knows if you're serious. You know what I mean? So if I'm like, I'm going to Kabul, LOL. If I'm there, I'm there. I was just joking if I didn't go. I bought a timeshare there, by the way, just recently.
I'm sure it was expensive.
Well, here's the thing. Shit garden out there. But with Apple, they would not unlock this guy's phone. Right. And they said, we are the whole point of Apple was it was for the end user. Right.
We're trying to protect your privacy.
And they were anti-government having any access to it. Somehow in the last 4 or 5 years, that's changed.
What happened was they met with the right people who explained very clearly to them that privacy was no longer important and that they should just expose everything to the government so that, you know, people will be safer.
But this is, again, so let's go back to the Patriot Act.
You'll be safer.
I feel safe in this room, but I don't have my phone in my hand.
Oh, there you go.
If you go back to the Patriot Act, which people I don't think quite understand what that entails, right? So after, let's just call it 9/12, they start drafting legislation. Who were the fathers of that bill, Staniel?
I only remember one. Joe Biden was one of them.
That's right. President Jim Biden. And he and George Bush signed this into law, and it's been approved 4 times since, right?
It has.
And the powers in it keep increasing as to what they can and can't look for. I haven't heard what they can't look for, but it seems like there's a lot of can.
Well, I mean, essentially made it legal. There's a lot of crazy stuff in there that people you just wouldn't believe was in there. The whole idea of rendition and some of those kinds of things. But essentially, the biggest part is that the Patriot Act and the expansions of the Patriot Act since then have basically allowed the government to pretty much spy on everything we do.
Right.
I mean, FISA courts were created in the Patriot Act, and you know, I mean, you think about the FISA court is actually a secret court, not a public court, which seems unconstitutional on its face. So it's a secret court that can give the particular agency that's talking to it, whichever agency it is, the right to wiretap, or essentially when they say wiretap, it sounds a little bit innocuous because there's not really wires anymore.
Right. Well, I think we're thinking the French Connection, like there's somebody across the street, you know, listening in a hotel room.
It's like a party line when you were a kid. But essentially what it does is it gives them the right to completely open you up. They once they do that, I mean, they not only can look at what's your phone call, they can follow you around, check your GPS in your car, they can watch what TV you're watching, they can put cameras in your house, they can do all kinds of stuff that is just incredibly invasive, and you know, all that is just permitted under the Patriot Act, and you know, none of that is something that really you want happening. And you know, the problem with the people in general, I mean, I talk about this occasionally with friends of mine, and people say, well, why would you worry about that if you're not doing anything illegal? And you know, on the face, that sounds pretty reasonable, right? If I'm not doing anything wrong, I really don't care if they watch. But the problem is, you know, John, I don't know if you know who John Whitehead is. John Whitehead writes for the Rutherford Institute, and he has made the claim that the average person violates 3 federal laws every day without knowing it. So when you think about the volume of laws that are out there, I don't know. I haven't done the research. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, but just say 61%. Like if it's more than 50, people go, yeah, that makes sense.
It sounds reasonable, but essentially his point is that there are so many laws on the books when you go state, federal, local laws, and then all of the administrative rules and regulations that are out there. There's so many laws on the books that the chances of you violating a law by accident are pretty high. So essentially what happens now is you're living in a society where anyone can be charged at any time for a crime.
Right.
In old Soviet Russia, I remember how they used to talk about people being arrested and then they'd make up the charges later. I mean, we've essentially created that potential here.
I love that, actually.
You love that being
Well, I was a big fan of the Cold War. The movies were better. I think that food choices were better. If we can go back to Cold War, that was cool. So
you thought Roger Moore was a better 007?
First of all, Roger Moore was the best 007 until Daniel Craig, but that's totally different.
Really?
Sean Connery.
So you weren't a big fan of Sean, huh?
I was when he was in, until he did that Temple of Doom movie. What was that, Indiana Jones? Nate, help me out.
Yeah, he was.
Once again, he's not helping me.
He was Harrison Ford's dad.
Yeah, because that made sense. He has a Welsh accent, and then the other guy sounds like he was driving a truck in Sacramento, but that's his dad.
Well, he was driving a truck in Sacramento.
Well, Sacramento's a beautiful place. I'm not gonna attack Sacramento on this show.
So what about Timothy Dalton, though? I mean,
first of all, what was the point of that?
Well, I mean, I thought maybe you liked him or something.
No, I'm a fan.
How about Pierce Brosnan? Didn't you think Pierce Brosnan?
I'm fine with it. I'm going to tell you something that people from MIT told me, and I learned this a long time ago.
About Pierce Brosnan?
Well, my cousin, I spent time with him and these people, and they said the first person that you see do a role, that is your person. So if you watch Doctor Who and Tom Baker was the first one you saw, everything else seems odd, right? So for me, the first...
So that's why Bewitched was so weird when they changed Darren's.
Yes, but that's also why kids at MIT must have nothing to do if that's what they're discussing. But... I was with them and I thought this is a conversation.
Philosophical issues in here, man.
What I do is I bring the knowledge from the streets. I bring the knowledge from the streets and I try to bring you up to hip culture.
I think you're belittling the intellectual value of discussing the different Darrens on Bewitched.
Well, let me just say this. When I look through your phone when you're not looking, we'll see what you're really spending your time talking about instead of defending Bewitched. Here's what I want to point out.
I bet you would be very excited by that.
Listen, I grabbed Nate's phone and it looked like a butcher shop was what he was taking pictures of. I have no idea what's going on, but he should delete all of that. What I am concerned about, though...
Did you get a deer this year, man? No? He didn't get a deer this year.
No. There's a lot of meat products on there, though. What I am concerned about when someone says to me...
It's for culinary purposes. You know, he's just sharing what he's sharing what he's smoking.
It's like he's at a deli. All meats, no cheeses. So when people say, why are you worried about what's on your phone or what you're... The other piece of this is they can... I forget what they call it, scraping or scaling. They can look for keywords that we're texting back and forth. So I could text you an article about Afghanistan and the best places to live in 2022, and it's going to pick up, am I saying anything negative? So if I go, oh my God, what a tremendous mistake or what a great thing, either way, they're able to see that and they're able to see these keywords. That's what they're looking for. So what I think is going to happen is as we move forward, we don't have anybody that we're currently fighting. I'm sorry, let me say that we know that we're fighting. So as you come back, the Patriot Act still applies to us.
It certainly does, yes.
So it goes to the anti-vax communities.
And something that happened last week that nobody was paying attention to was that the DHS released a whole new list of things that can indicate that someone might be a domestic terrorist.
Oh, yeah. Do you know any of them?
Any of the lists or any domestic terrorists?
Sorry. I should clarify. How many terrorists do you know and what acts are you committing? Because you said 3 a day.
I don't know any terrorists.
See, that's the key. That's how you know they're good at their job. I never understood why a terrorist would say, my name is this.
Remember the key indicator of whether you're an alcoholic is if you deny that you're an alcoholic. So
Right.
I think terrorism works the same way.
I think if you say it 3 times, I have to believe you. But if you just
Right.
go, I'm not a terrorist, but you have a rocket on your back, I can be a little bit like, this looks a little shady. I will say that my concern is what those powers will be used for towards us as just citizens, because
Well, it's frightening.
If
It's
you-
absolutely frightening.
if the July 6th, let's just call it fun time invasion land, whatever you want to call that, if you have an opinion on it, first of all, you weren't there. You're just watching it on television. And I got to say, it's better than anything NBC's had on since Friends. But, and I would watch it every day, actually. I wish they would have cut it up into half-hour segments.
Yeah.
But if you have an opinion on that, that's what they're looking for. They want people to say, well, this guy might be the next Unabomber, so we need to know what's going on with him. They can even do that on this show. They could scrub what we're talking about.
They could actually do that, or they could make it so that you can't get it on. I was surprised at the fact that this thing came out from DHS and nobody covered it. I was also surprised that how aggressive social media is getting at deleting things. I mean, try to find a report on Twitter from Afghanistan that's like an on the ground report.
Right.
I mean, CNN, you can see what CNN's saying, but if it's some dude in Kabul hiding in a hotel that's polishing something out on YouTube, that's getting killed. It's getting killed everywhere.
Well, remember the whole laptop story. Yeah. Whether Jim Biden's kid, that laptop, it's not his, and they started banning people. Eventually, had to give it back and say, okay, that wasn't a wrong story. Months later, so now that he's lost his 3rd, he could be on his 4th
laptop.
Yeah, that just happened a couple weeks ago.
Even knows how many laptops he has.
Here's my question: who's paying for these laptops? Because I got to say, if my daughter lost my key for my car, I would be beating her to death. This guy keeps losing laptops. Mm-hmm. Where are you going to Best Buy? He's got to have like a. Don't you get credit if you buy so many things there? You get money back.
Frequent flyer miles or something.
And who?
Best Buy.
If you lost one, wouldn't you be so careful with the next, especially when it has government secrets on it or really foul pictures?
Or both secret government foul pictures. You could have those.
I just don't understand. How are you losing so much hardware? I've cracked a screen on my phone and I felt ashamed. I can't imagine losing videos of me doing cartwheels with a young Russian lady. That's code for something. But again, in that instance, that's a computer that should be flagged. Everything that's going out.
Right.
And again, it's kind of rules for you, but not for this protected class, which is what we're doing. Again, we're just pushing people farther and farther away from equality.
And like I said, I think that when you look at the way oppressive governments have behaved in the past, Natalie Wolf wrote a great book in the mid 2000s called "The End of America," and basically that was in her response to the Patriot Act in the Bush administration. I said Naomi Wolf.
I do know. I was like, was that the lady with James Dean?
No, that was Natalie. Anyway, so Naomi Wolf wrote this book called "The End of America," and I highly recommend it. It's an intriguing read. She's recently kind of republished it with
addendum
on it. But it's just interesting her take on things. And the stages that governments go through when they are becoming more oppressive, and how, I mean, governments get very paranoid, and they're sure that they're the goal once a person who's being oppressive gets in power, their goal is to stay in power, right? And so they don't really care what most people are doing as long as they're not criticizing the government or doing things that they see as subversive. But some of the things that they see as subversive, like the practice of a religion, for instance, or having opinions, about things that are happening, those things can be prosecuted very easily in most of these oppressive regimes because they set it up so that there are so many laws that they can charge you with something. And if they don't have something, they'll just make a new law and charge you with violating that.
But don't you think that's part of the problem is that we're if you look at Chicago, I think there's a bullet per person that lives in Chicago, but you're seeing the police forces being told you can't chase people on foot anymore, any of that kind of stuff. They're letting that go, but if you're putting out something hilarious that's a meme on Facebook, they're going back and reviewing and taking down and treating it like you should be ashamed of yourself. Mm-hmm. What is the end game? Because
you're a bully.
Right. There's a big bullying stance, and it's like...
The person shooting the gun's not a bully.
Right. But we've talked about this. The media attacks...
Just a misguided soul who has an illegal weapon.
Jesus Christ, I feel like you're talking about me. What I would like to know is, what is the end game of this? Because as you said, you keep taking more and more freedom or power, like even if it's freedom of speech.
The goal of oppressive power is to have more power. I mean, that's strictly what it is. It's I want more of this. I want more power. I want more money. I want more power. I want more money. I want more power. That's what.
But you can't undo it, right? So when the Patriot Act got signed, because I can remember people saying in the beginning, this is the end of America as you know it, and nobody was kind of jumping on board. It wasn't on the.
That was the name of the book.
Well, I was going to write that book because I got a great title. But when you're looking at that and you're saying people weren't fighting for their right because you didn't realize what was being taken away.
Well, and you remember that was passed in the wake of the towers falling.
Right.
And people were afraid and angry and were told this will help us catch the guys that did this. This will help us bring retribution to the people who need retribution.
Couldn't they just looked at the tax records of who the CIA is paying?
Did you say that out loud? I think
Nope.
you did.
I didn't say it in a bullying way. I just want people to Google these things.
Did you hear that? Yeah. Anyway, I guess they could have, but I'm just saying that when the Patriot Act was passed, it was passed in a time that was very emotional, and
so you'll look the other way because your emotions are dictating your thoughts.
Right, because you're thinking this is going to help, and again, this is going to keep us safer, and things that keep us safer always make us less free. You can't be completely safe and free. The safer you are, the less free you are. And that's kind of just the way it works. And, every time a law is passed, I remember when I don't know if you remember when seatbelts were first passed as a required, it was first a law.
Ralph Nader, yeah.
And everybody had to buckle up. And I remember my parents and my grandparents just being hacked off. I mean, my dad was a conscientious objector for a long time, wouldn't buckle his seatbelt just because he's being told to. And I'm like, it's not that big a deal. But on the one hand, they're right. And on the one hand, it's silly not to buckle your seatbelt when you're driving in a car. It's really not that big of a deal. It's not that invasive.
I don't know about that oppressor, but go on.
But on the flip side, I kind of see their point as I'm getting older. The fact that people, I mean, when somebody says you have to buckle your seatbelt when you drive a car, that's one less kind of freedom that you have. And if you do that enough, the more steps you take down that road, the less free you become.
Well, let's take that seatbelt analogy one step further, because I was listening to when George Bush, he was a president. We had two of them, but
yes, we did.
When he gave his address to Congress, one of the pieces.
Do you think they ever called?
Well, here's what I think is funny is because I remember again, everything that was going on.
Get it? It went right over his head. It's just
As a true patriot, I'm just going on. But one of the things he said is the Patriot Act would protect us against enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
And at the time, I thought, okay, fine. But when you have no one left to fight over there,
right,
you still have to allocate this money to fighting someone somewhere.
Well, and
Ooh, that's a good book title. Bookmark that. I don't want him stealing my title.
It's too long. Anyway,
not if the book is big.
When you think about things like in I think it's in New York State, it is now illegal to buy bulletproof material, clothing. You can't buy Kevlar for yourself, personal protection device. Now, I think about that and I go, okay, why would the government not want me to have bulletproof clothing? I mean, it's a defensive thing. It's not like I'm going to beat you to death with my bulletproof vest. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe if you're big enough.
It's you know, I mean, well, they outlaw lawn darts too, but anyway, it's not something. It's not like they're outlawing something that you're using to hurt other people. Right. It's something
you can't use it as a projectile
to protect yourself. So if they don't want me to wear, then it begs the question: why do you not want me to have that? And you know, the cynical answer is because when I shoot you, I want you to die.
Right.
You know, I mean, so it just becomes interesting that you start seeing these kinds of laws being passed that kind of limit your access to these things. And as I said, the more safety we have, the less free we become.
Get your flip phone, stay off the internet, never go outside. You've been listening to Objections with Stan Willis. We'll see you next week.